Hey folks, welcome to another end-user tutorial video. Today, we'll be covering the version system, explaining how it works, and showing you how to use it. The version system and the version screen that I'll show you today is essentially the last main component of the Page Actions toolbar. We've covered all the other components in previous videos. Before we launch into an example, let's briefly cover what the version system does. When a page is created, users can begin to make versions of it, which essentially act as internal backups. If there's ever a need, you can reference those previous versions to see what the page looked like at that point in the past. Beyond simply referencing previous versions, you can compare how the current page looks versus how it looks in any previous version, and you can revert the page back to any previous version as well. Needless to say, taking advantage of the version system can be quite useful. Let's take a look at an example page. Here inside OU Campus, I'll head over to the Campus Life directory, and this time I'll go into the Clubs page. In order to access the version screen, I needed to check out my page, so let's do that first. Then, I can click on the Versions button in the Page Actions toolbar. Now, we're inside the versions screen. As you can see, I have several versions that already exist for this page. Let's make sure that we understand all of what's being shown in the screen first of all. In the versions list view, as we call it, we can see a record of when each version was created, who created the version, and then any sort of description they've offered to help us understand what's changed with that particular version. There's also one version in particular that's highlighted in green. This one, as indicated by the word live in the version column, is the version that web visitors are actually seeing. If we went to this page directly on the web, we would see this live version. Finally, if I hover over one of these particular versions in the screen, I'm given three options: View, Compare, and Revert. We'll show how to use these in just a few moments. Before that, though, let's talk about how versions are actually made. Each time I publish my page, OU Campus will automatically save a version. When I publish, I'm sending out something I consider good enough for other people outside of my institution to view. It makes sense that I'd want to save backups of the page each time I do that, so I can always reference every iteration of what the page looked like when it was live on the web. As a quick example, let me just perform a test publish of my page so you can see this happen in real time, even though I haven't changed the content of my page since the last time it was published. I'll go to the green Publish button, and then I'll just write a version description here, and then I'll click Publish. Once that finishes, you can see that now I have a new version at the top of my list with the date and time I published it, and with my test description added, and it's also highlighted in green. Since I can have only one version of the page displayed at a time to web visitors, the old live version is now replaced with this new live version. The second way that we can create versions is through a manual backup. This method doesn't require us to publish the page, and we can do it at any time. What it'll do is it will take a snapshot of what the page looks like inside OU Campus, or in other words, a snapshot of the staging server, and then it'll save a backup of it. This is great if you want to perhaps save a backup of the page before you try something risky that you're not sure will work out, or before you make some seriously major changes to the page. That way, if it doesn't work out and you want to undo those edits, you can just revert to your backup instead of having to manually undo everything. Big time saver. Here's how to save a manual backup. Up in the Page Actions toolbar, click on the box icon with the down arrow on it. This is the Save Version button, and it will save what I've got on the staging server as its own version. I'll add another test description, and then when that's done, I'll click the Save Version button in this dialog box. Now, we can see that another version has appeared in our list view. This one, however, isn't going to be highlighted in green because I didn't publish the page when I saved this version. Therefore, my web visitors are still seeing the same version of the page as they did before I saved this backup. Now that I have a few more versions added to my page, let's look at these three options that are available to me when I hover over one of those versions. The first option is View. This one's pretty self-explanatory. When I click View, I can see what the page looked like at that point in time. The second option is called Compare. This allows me to compare what the page looked like at that point in time versus what it looks like currently on the staging server. If I compare the page, we can see more clearly what's changed. The tunnel tenors have been removed from the list of clubs, which is signified by the text being struck through in red. We'll run another comparison later on that shows some of the other features of Compare. There are some other comparisons that we can run. If I was experienced with reading code, I could also use this compare source option to see the exact code that's been removed or added. Also, we have the blue Compare to Live button, which compares the staging server to what's visible on the live website. If you just want to know if what you see in OU Campus is different from what web visitors are seeing, this is the easiest way to do so. The final option that we have available to us is Revert. As you can probably guess, Revert allows us to bring the page back to look like a previous version. Remember how the tunnel tenors was removed from the list of clubs? What if that was an accident, and we need to relist them? We could add them back manually, or we could just as easily revert the page back to that version. What I'll do is go to version 9, the one before it says the club was removed, and then I'll quickly view that version. We can see that the tunnel tenors here are listed in the list, so this is the version that we want to revert back to. Next, I'll click Revert in the Options column. When I revert, I'm only reverting how the page looks like in OU Campus. Once again, my web visitors will be completely unaffected until I choose to publish the page again. Once I revert, notice that the highlighted live version doesn't change and that a new version has not been created. Let's go back to the page preview to confirm that the tunnel tenors are back on the list, and there they are. Wonderful. Another club, the Toastmasters, has unfortunately not gotten enough membership this year, so it's going to have to be removed from the list. And also, maybe at the same time, we found out that a new club has been formed and we need to list them. Might as well add their name to the list while we're at it. So let me really quickly hop back into the main content region of the page and add the board game club, which is the new one, to the list. And then I'll scroll down and remove the Toastmasters. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to bold the first sentence of the opening paragraph. And you'll see why I'm doing that in just a second. Alright, so now we've added our stuff. Let's hop into the version screen really quickly and do another comparison. This time let's use Compare to Live. In this comparison, we can see 3 different styles being applied to my text. Let's break down what each one of these means. Anything that's green and underlined means that it wasn't in my old version, but it's been added since. The new club I added, as you can see, is colored this way. So it was not on the production server, it's not live to my web visitors yet, but it has been added to the staging server. Anything that was on the page in the old version, in other words, the live version, but has been since removed, will be struck through in red, so that's why we see Toastmasters displayed as such now. And then finally, any content that exists in both the old version and in my staging server, in other words, they're both on the live server and on the staging server, but it's undergone a format change, will be shown in blue. So that's why my first sentence in the content is blue, because I bolded it on staging, but it wasn't bolded on the live site. Now, with all of that done, I've adjusted my page, and let's just actually publish it one last time. Alright, let me do that, and then I'll add a version description. Okay, great. So now we have our final new version for this page. To review, we have lots of options in the version screen. You can view previous versions, compare versions, and even revert. Versions are created every time you publish a page, and you can also manually create new versions at any time using the Save Version button. Finally, remember that the version highlighted in green is the one that's currently live on your site, so people visiting that page from the web are seeing that version of the page. Thanks for watching our overview of the version system. Next time, we'll be talking in depth about publishing pages.